The big ship appeared suddenly in Earth's sky one Tuesday morning. It was longer than 10 football fields and shaped like a massive arrowhead. Within hours, every TV channel, radio station, and news site showed the same thing. Humanity's first alien visitors had arrived. Commander Susan Clark stood on the deck of the USS Liberty, binoculars in hand, watching the alien vessel hover above the Atlantic Ocean. At 42, Susan had spent half her life in the Earth Defense Fleet. She had trained for many scenarios, but actual first contact was not one of them. "Admiral on deck," someone called. Susan lowered her binoculars as Admiral John Bell approached. His weathered face looked grimmer than usual. "Commander Clark, what's your assessment?" he asked without preamble. "Their technology is far beyond ours, sir," Susan replied. "The ship's holding position without any visible propulsion system. Our radar can't penetrate their hull, and they've ignored all our communication attempts." Bell nodded. "The UN Security Council is meeting now. Representatives from this Galactic Council will land in New York within the hour." 3 days later, Susan found herself inside the United Nations building, part of the military escort for Earth's political leaders. The aliens had requested this face-to-face meeting after their initial communication via global broadcast. The main alien, who called himself Ambassador Zextur of the Drakari, stood nearly 7 feet tall. His skin was pale blue with faint scale patterns, and his 4 eyes blinked independently of each other. When he spoke, a small device at his throat translated his clicks and whistles into perfect English. "The Galactic Council welcomes Earth to the interstellar community," Zextur announced. "We represent a peaceful alliance of 47 species across this sector of the galaxy. We offer Earth membership in our ancient coalition." The human delegates applauded, but Susan noticed something in the alien's posture, a subtle tension she recognized from years of military negotiations. The alien continued. "As is customary for new members, Earth will enter as a protected species. You will receive technology, medical advances, and cultural exchange. In return, we ask only for reasonable limitations on your expansion and military development." Susan frowned. The words sounded friendly, but the meaning behind them concerned her. Protected species sounded more like a zoo animal than an equal partner. After the formal presentation, Susan mingled with other military officers at the reception. She overheard 2 diplomats discussing the deal. The technology they're offering could end climate change, hunger, even death from old age, one said excitedly. "But at what cost?" asked the other. "These limitations they want, no colonies beyond. Mars restricted spaceship designs, alien observers in our military bases." Susan moved to a quiet corner where she could observe the aliens. The Drakari ambassador was speaking with a shorter, insect-like alien. Their translation devices were off, and they spoke in their native languages. Susan activated the recording function on her military-grade earpiece, hoping the linguistics team could translate it later. The next morning, Susan sat in a secure briefing room at the Pentagon. Across from her sat Dr. Alan Hayes, Earth's leading physicist, and Greg Martinez from Military Intelligence. "I had our best linguists work on the recording overnight," Greg said, setting a tablet on the table. "It's not perfect, but you need to hear this." He pressed play. The alien voices had been dubbed over with a monotone computer translation. "The containment protocol seems promising for these humans," the insect-like alien said. "Yes," replied Zextur. "They are much like the Tyrillians, aggressive, inventive, dangerous if left unchecked. But they are desperate for our technology. This makes the solution simpler." "And if they reject protectorate status?" "They won't. But if they do, we move to secondary containment measures. The High Council has already approved this." The recording ended and silence filled the room. "Containment protocol?" Susan asked. "What does that mean?" Dr. Hayes removed his glasses. "Nothing good. In biological terms, you contain things that are dangerous. Viruses. Toxins." "I think we should take this to the president," Susan said. 3 hours later, they stood in the Oval Office. The president listened to their concerns, but Susan could tell they weren't making an impact. "Commander Clark," the president said finally, I understand your concerns, but we have to look at the bigger picture. The United Nations votes tomorrow, and most nations favor accepting the Council's offer. These aliens have cures for cancer, clean energy technology, and faster-than-light travel. We can't risk losing these gifts because of one suspicious conversation that might be mistranslated. But sir, Susan insisted, at minimum, we should delay the vote. Investigate further. That's enough, Commander. Admiral Bell cut in. The President has heard your concerns. The next day, the UN voted overwhelmingly to accept the Galactic Council's offer. Earth would join as a protected species with limited rights to expansion and military development. In exchange, they would receive technological and medical advances that would transform human society. 2 weeks later, Susan visited Dr. Hayes at his laboratory at MIT. The place had changed dramatically. Alien technology sat on every workbench, and 2 Drakari scientific liaisons watched the human scientists work. Hayes led Susan to a soundproof conference room. "I've been studying their technology," he whispered once the door closed. "Something's not right. They're giving us outdated versions of their tech. I've found design limitations that make no sense unless they were deliberately included to restrict performance." Susan wasn't surprised. "Can you work around them?" "I already have," Hayes said with a small smile. "I developed an improved version of their energy converter last week. When I showed my results to the Drakari observers, they confiscated all my work and told me to focus on implementing their designs, not improving them." Hayes pulled out a small data drive. "But I kept backups. Susan, humanity needs to develop its own path forward, not just accept the scraps they offer us." As Susan left Hayes's lab, she noticed a Drakari observer watching her. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in that strange, independent pattern. Susan nodded politely and continued walking, but she felt the eyes follow her. That night, Susan couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment, thinking about everything she had learned. The Galactic Council wasn't here to welcome humanity as equals. They saw humans as a potential threat to contain and control. Susan made her decision at dawn. She contacted Hayes and Martinez on a secure line and arranged to meet at a remote cabin in the Adirondack Mountains that weekend. There, the 3 of them formed a secret group dedicated to one purpose: uncovering the Council's true agenda and ensuring humanity's independence. They would develop Earth's technological capabilities separate from alien influence and prepare for the day when the Galactic Council's true intentions became clear. As they watched the sun set over the mountains, Susan said quietly, "We may be the only ones who see the danger. Whatever happens, we need to be ready." Hayes nodded. "The Council thinks they can control us by giving us just enough technology to make us dependent but not enough to make us equal. They don't understand humans." "Very well." "No," Susan agreed. "They don't. And that might be our only advantage." 5 years passed since the aliens came to Earth. The world had changed in ways both amazing and troubling. New medicines cured diseases that once killed millions. Clean energy powered cities without pollution. People lived longer, healthier. But Susan Clark noticed the price humanity paid for these gifts. Alien advisors now sat in every government. Earth's military had been reduced and restricted. Space exploration beyond Mars was forbidden by Council law. Susan, now captain of the experimental ship Aurora, stood on her bridge as they approached Jupiter's moon Europa. The Aurora was one of the few Earth ships allowed to travel this far, from home, supposedly to conduct scientific research approved by the Council. "Captain, we're receiving the usual warning from the Council observation post," said Lieutenant Frank Wilson, her communications officer. "They're reminding us not to approach the restricted zones." Susan nodded. The Council had declared several areas of the solar system off-limits to humans, claiming they were ecologically sensitive, or navigation hazards. She had never believed these excuses. Acknowledge their warning, but remind them we have permission to survey Europa's ocean for the joint research project, she replied. The Aurora continued its approach to the icy moon. Susan studied the small crew on her bridge. They were all people she trusted, people who shared her concerns about the Council's control. "Captain, I'm detecting something strange," said Maya Wong, the ship's technology specialist. Maya had joined Susan's secret group 3 years ago after discovering alien monitoring devices in Earth's communication systems. Susan moved to Maya's station. What is it? An energy signature coming from the far side of Europa. It's not on any of our charts, and it doesn't match known council technology. Susan made a quick decision. Alter course, let's take a closer look. The council outpost will notice, Frank warned. Tell them we detected a potential hazard and need to investigate. It's within our mission parameters. The Aurora swung around, Europa's curve. As the far side of the moon came into view, they saw it. A structure built into the ice, partially hidden by a rocky outcropping. That's not council architecture, Maya said quietly. The design is different. Susan ordered the ship to maintain distance. Can we scan it without being detected? Maya worked her controls. I think so. The ice provides some interference that might mask our active scans. For 30 minutes they gathered data. The structure showed no signs of current occupation, but its power system still functioned at minimal levels. Captain, I think this is an abandoned outpost, Maya finally said. And based on the decay rate of materials, it's been here for at least 300 years. Susan felt a chill. The council told us they only discovered Earth 20 years before first contact. They lied, Frank said simply. Susan made another decision. Prepare a landing team. We're going to take a closer look. An hour later, Susan led a team of 5 through the abandoned alien structure. Their flashlights illuminated strange symbols on metallic walls. The air was thin, but breathable thanks to the outpost's partially functioning life support. This place was built to observe something, Maya said, examining a room filled with what looked like monitoring equipment. And I think that something was Earth. Susan moved to a central console. Can you get any data from these systems? Maya connected her tablet to the alien technology. Some of it, the Drakari translation program we borrowed, is helping. The others continued exploring while Maya worked. Frank called from another room. Captain, you should see this. Susan joined him in what appeared to be an archive room. The walls were lined with storage units. Frank had opened one, revealing rows of crystal data storage devices. I recognize these, Susan said. Similar technology is used in the Council's central database. They brought several crystals back to Maya, who found a way to read them through her tablet. Captain, she said, her voice trembling slightly. These are observation reports about Earth. The oldest ones date back nearly 500 years. Susan looked over her shoulder at the translated text. They've been watching us for centuries, not decades. There's more, Maya continued, opening another file. This appears to be a classification system for developing species. Humans are listed as Category 7, defined as highly innovative with concerning militaristic tendencies. Susan scanned further down the document. Look at this part. Species in Category 7 require management protocols to ensure they do not threaten Council stability. Recommended action: technological restriction and cultural guidance to redirect aggressive tendencies. Frank looked grim. They're not helping us. They're controlling us. And there's a list here of other species they've managed, Maya added. Some thrived under their restrictions. Others didn't. Susan noticed something else. These records mention something called the Final Containment Protocol. Do we know what that is? Maya searched through more files. I can't find details, but it seems to be their last resort for species that resist management. Whatever it is, it was used on a species called the Tyrillians about 800 years ago. Now there's no mention of Tyrillians anywhere in the current council records we've seen. A cold silence fell over the room as the implication became clear. We need to download everything we can, Susan ordered. Then we need to leave before the council realizes what we've found. Back on Earth 2 weeks later, Susan met with Dr. Hayes and Greg Martinez in the underground facility they had built beneath an old farm in Idaho. The place had become the headquarters for their growing resistance movement. Hayes had aged visibly in the past 5 years, the stress of his secret work taking a toll. But his eyes lit up as Maya presented their findings from Europa. This confirms what we've suspected, he said. The Council isn't interested in partnership. They're containing what they see as a threat. Greg, who now worked in Earth's diplomatic corps, added, their control is tightening. Next month, they're implementing new security protocols requiring alien observers on all human vessels and military installations. Then we're running out of time, Susan said. Alan, how is the drive coming? Hayes smiled for the first time. It's ready for testing. We've built it into a small prototype vessel hidden in the asteroid belt. If it works, we'll have faster-than-light travel developed entirely by humans, using principles the Council seems to have deliberately avoided in their gift technology. When can we test it? Susan asked. The ship is ready now. We just need to get you there without the Council noticing your absence. Susan looked at her friends, these brave humans who risked everything to secure humanity's future. We'll find a way, and if the drive works, everything changes. We'll have proof that humans can innovate beyond the Council's restrictions. As they continued planning, a message came through on Greg's secure communication device. His face paled as he read it. The Council has just announced that all Earth ships will now require Drakari pilots for safety reasons. They're implementing it immediately. Susan stood up. Then we move now. I'll take the Aurora to the asteroid belt tonight, before they can put their pilot aboard. If you do this, Greg warned, there's no going back. Susan nodded. I know, but we've seen their plans for us. If we don't act now, humanity will never be truly free. That night, the Aurora slipped away from Earth orbit, carrying Susan, Maya, and a small crew of trusted officers. Their destination, a hidden human base in the prototype ship that might change humanity's future forever. 10 years had passed since the aliens of the Galactic Council first came to Earth. What began as excitement had turned to fear and anger for many humans. The world was divided between those who supported the Council and those who wanted freedom from alien control. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the bridge of her ship, now called the Freedom instead of Aurora. The old name had been abandoned when they fled Earth space 5 years ago. The Freedom was hidden in a dense asteroid field at the edge of the solar system, along with 20 other ships that formed Earth's secret Shadow Fleet. Status report, Susan ordered, looking at the main screen showing a Council warship passing nearby. They haven't detected us, Maya Wong replied from her station. Maya was now Susan's second in command. Their sensors still can't penetrate the stealth field Dr. Hayes developed. Susan nodded. Alan Hayes had created many miracles in the past decade. His work had given the Resistance a fighting chance against the vastly more numerous alien forces. Any news from Earth? Susan asked. Frank Wilson, her communications officer, looked up from his console. Greg's last message reported that the Council is sending a major fleet to Earth. They're calling it a peacekeeping force to deal with growing unrest. Susan's face hardened. The Council was tightening its grip. Ever since humans had discovered the truth about the aliens' long surveillance of Earth and their plans to contain humanity's growth, resistance had spread. Now it seemed the Council was done with subtle control and ready for more direct measures. How many ships? She asked. Over 100, including 3 dreadnoughts, Frank replied grimly. Susan turned to Maya. Is the prototype ready? Dr. Hayes says it needs 1 more day of testing. Susan shook her head. We don't have a day. Tell him we move tonight. 5 hours later, Susan met with the captains of the other Shadow Fleet vessels via secure holographic link. Each face showed the same mix of determination and worry. The Council is sending an invasion fleet to Earth, Susan told them. We've run out of time. Tonight we implement Operation Breakout. Captain Bill Jordan of the Defiance spoke up. My ship is ready, Admiral. But are we sure Hayes' new technology will work against their defenses? It has to, Susan replied. For 5 years, we've been developing weapons and shields based on principles the Council deliberately avoided. Their standard defenses have no countermeasures for what we've built. And we're sure about the target? Asked Captain Olivia Russell of the Courage. Susan nodded. The Council's main communication hub in the outer solar system. If we can capture it intact, we'll gain access to their entire command network. We'll finally learn the details of their final containment protocol for Earth. The plan was set. At midnight Earth time, the Shadow Fleet would launch its first direct attack against Council forces. As Susan prepared for battle, she thought about how much had changed. The Freedom, like all Shadow Fleet vessels, looked nothing like standard Earth or Council ships. Hayes and his team had designed them with unique propulsion systems and weapon technologies developed in secret. While Council ships were massive and imposing, the human vessels were smaller, faster, and built around technologies the aliens had seemingly overlooked or deliberately avoided. "Admiral, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Greg." Frank called out suddenly. "Council forces have begun landing troops at major cities. They're saying it's to protect humans from dangerous radical elements." "They're moving earlier than we expected," Susan said. "Signal the fleet. We launch now." The Shadow Fleet emerged from hiding, 21 ships against the might of the Galactic Council. Their target, a massive communication station orbiting Neptune. Council sensors detected them only when they were already close. By then, the specialized weapons Hayes had developed were already firing. Beams of energy unlike anything the Council used struck the station's defense shields. "Their shields are failing," Maya reported, surprised. "The quantum disruptors are working just as Hayes predicted." Susan watched as Council defense ships rushed to protect the station. "Launch fighters," she ordered. Small, agile craft poured from the human vessels. Unlike the Council's fighters, these were piloted by humans using neural interfaces that allowed faster reactions than any alien pilot could match. "The station's main defenses are down," Maya reported. "Boarding teams are ready." Susan led the boarding party herself. 50 humans in advanced combat suits transported onto the station. They met alien resistance immediately. The Drakari security forces were tall, strong, and armed with weapons that could disintegrate a human with one shot. But they were slow compared to humans, and clearly confused by the technology the boarding team used. "They've never fought against our new shields," said Mike Reeves, Susan's security chief, as a Drakari weapon blast dissipated harmlessly against his suit's energy field. The humans pushed forward, stunning rather than killing when possible. Susan had given strict orders. This was about gaining intelligence and freedom, not revenge. They reached the central control room after 20 minutes of fighting. Susan ordered her tech team to download everything from the station's database. While she secured the room, a wounded Drakari commander watched her from where he sat against a wall. "You humans are making a grave mistake," he said through his translator. "The Council will not allow this rebellion." Susan approached him. "We know about the containment protocol. We know what you plan to do to Earth." The alien's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "How could you possibly know that?" "We found your observation post on Europa. We know you've been watching Earth for centuries, not decades. You lied about first contact. You've been controlling our development, keeping us weak." The alien was quiet for a moment. "It was for your own good. Species like yours, too aggressive, too inventive. You destabilized the galaxy. We tried to guide you to a more peaceful path. By restricting our growth? By placing alien controllers in our governments? That's not guidance, it's oppression." Maya interrupted. "Admiral, we've got it. Everything in their database. And we found something you need to see immediately." On a large screen, Maya displayed a detailed plan titled Earth Containment, Phase 3. Susan read it with growing horror. The Council's peacekeeping fleet wasn't just there to put down resistance. They were setting up orbital weapons platforms designed to target specific locations on Earth: military bases, resistance strongholds, and research facilities. "They're going to bombard Earth from orbit," Susan said. "They'll kill millions to maintain control." Just then, Frank's voice came through her communicator. "Admiral, we've got an emergency. Council reinforcements have arrived, at least 40 ships, including a dreadnought." Susan made a quick decision. "Complete the download. Plant the quantum disruptors around the central reactor. We're taking this station out." As her team worked, Susan sent a message to all Shadow Fleet vessels. "Fall back to Earth. Emergency Protocol Homecoming is now active." 20 minutes later, The Freedom and the remaining Shadow Fleet ships jumped to faster-than-light speed using Hayes's drive technology, leaving behind a massive explosion as the communication station's reactor went critical. They were heading home to Earth, carrying vital information about the Council's plans and a desperate hope that they weren't too late to stop an alien force willing to destroy everything, rather than let humans determine their own future. The Shadow Fleet arrived at Earth to find chaos. Council ships filled the skies. Orbital platforms with massive weapons were being assembled. On the ground, alien troops marched through major cities. Admiral Susan Clark watched the situation from the Bridge of the Freedom. Their stealth systems kept them hidden for now, but time was running out. "Maya, what's the status of Earth's defenses?" Susan asked. Maya looked up from her console with worry in her eyes. "Not good. The Council disabled most military satellites last week. They've taken control of major bases. Resistance forces are scattered and in hiding." Susan turned to Frank. "Can you reach Greg?" Frank worked at his communication station. "I'm trying a secure channel." "Got him. Putting him through now." Greg Martinez appeared on screen. He looked exhausted with a bandage over one eye. Behind him, Susan could see what looked like an underground bunker. "Susan, thank God," Greg said. "The Council is everywhere. They're calling it martial law, claiming they're protecting humanity from dangerous elements. They've arrested government officials who resist." "We know their real plan," Susan replied. "They're setting up orbital bombardment platforms. Once those are operational, they'll be able to destroy any resistance site from space." Greg's face paled. "How long do we have?" 2 days, maybe less," Susan said. "We need to meet. I have information from their command database that changes everything." They arranged a meeting at a hidden resistance base in the Rocky Mountains. The Freedom landed under cover of darkness, using the stealth technology that had kept the Shadow Fleet hidden for years. The base was inside an old military bunker that had been forgotten on official records. Hundreds of resistance fighters had gathered there along with key leaders including Dr. Alan Hayes. Hayes had aged considerably. His hair was completely white now, and he walked with a slight limp from an injury sustained during a council raid on one of his labs. But his eyes still burned with intelligence and determination. "Susan," he greeted her with a hug. "I heard your attack on the communication station was successful." "We got what we needed," she confirmed. "And your new weapons worked perfectly. The Council had no defense against them." In the main conference room, Susan addressed the assembled leaders. She explained how the Shadow Fleet had captured crucial intelligence from the Council's database. "The Council plans to establish complete control over Earth using their orbital platforms," she said. "But we found something even more important. The real reason they fear humanity so much." Susan nodded to Maya, who displayed images on the main screen. "This is a classified Council report about species categorization," Susan explained. "Most species in the galaxy were either engineered by precursor races or guided in their evolution, but humans evolved naturally, without interference." Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "This is significant because it gives us unique neurological patterns and problem-solving abilities. We suspected something like this when we discovered we could develop technologies the Council avoided." "It's not that they avoided these technologies," Susan clarified. "According to their own records, they couldn't conceptualize them. There are fundamental forces in the universe that natural evolved species like humans can intuitively understand and manipulate, but the Council species cannot." The room was silent as everyone absorbed this revelation. "Is that why our weapons work so well against them?" asked Captain Olivia Russell. "Exactly." Hayes nodded. "Their shields were designed to counter the weapons they understand. They had no defenses against our quantum-based technology because they can't fully comprehend how it works." Greg frowned. "If this is true, why didn't they just destroy Earth when they first found us? Why the charade of helping us?" An unfamiliar voice answered from the back of the room. "Because some of us opposed that approach." Everyone turned to see a slender alien step forward. Unlike the imposing Drakari, this alien was smaller, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer with faint blue. "Lights." Greg stood beside the alien. "This is Nyleth," Greg introduced. She's an Eldari diplomat who's been secretly helping us for years. Susan tensed, her hand moving to her weapon. It's okay, Greg assured her. Nyleth has provided critical intelligence. She risked everything to meet us here. The alien stepped forward. I represent the oldest species in the Council. For millennia, we Eldari have watched this pattern repeat. The Council identifies naturally evolved species with potential like yours, then either restricts them severely or eliminates them entirely. The Terrillians, Susan said, remembering the name from the abandoned outpost on Europa. Nyleth nodded sadly. A species much like humans. When they refused Council control, the final containment protocol was implemented. Their planet was struck by asteroids that the Council directed toward it. Millions died and their civilization collapsed. Horror filled the room. But why? Hayes asked. Why fear species like ours so much? Because you change things, Nyleth explained. The Council has maintained stability for thousands of years by preventing rapid change. Species like yours innovate quickly, solve problems in ways we cannot predict, develop technologies we cannot control. This threatens the power structure. And the Eldari? Susan asked. What do you want? Some of us believe the galaxy needs the innovation natural species provide. We've been working subtly for centuries to break this cycle, but we are few. Susan processed this information. So, humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or technology. It's our ability to think differently than the Council. Precisely, said Nyleth. And some Council species fear this so deeply that they would rather destroy you than allow you to develop freely. Hayes turned to Susan. This changes our strategy. A direct military confrontation, even with our advanced technology, would result in massive casualties on both sides. Susan nodded in agreement. We need to target their command structure and expose the truth to all Council species simultaneously. A plan formed quickly. While the Shadow Fleet engaged the Council Armada in Earth's orbit as a distraction, Hayes and a small team would infiltrate the Council's command ship to access their central database. Their goal? Broadcast the truth to all Council species using the quantum communication technology Hayes had developed. It's a desperate plan, Susan admitted. But if we succeed, we could change the balance of power in the galaxy. As they finalized their preparations, an alarm sounded. Council forces had detected unusual energy readings and were closing in on the mountain base. They've found us, Greg said urgently. We need to evacuate. Susan made her decision. No time for that. We launch now. All personnel to ships immediately. We'll implement the plan ahead of schedule. As resistance fighters rushed to their positions, Susan looked at Hayes. This might be our only chance. If we fail... Hayes finished her thought. If we fail, humanity becomes another footnote in the Council's history of contained species. But we won't fail. Within an hour, the Shadow Fleet rose from hiding places around Earth, ready for humanity's most important battle, not just for control of their planet, but for the right to determine their own destiny in a galaxy that feared their potential. The battle for Earth began at dawn. The Shadow Fleet emerged from stealth mode directly in Earth's orbit, confronting the massive Council Armada. Though outnumbered 5-1, the human ships had the advantage of surprise in their unique technology. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the Freedom's bridge, issuing commands as her fleet engaged the enemy. All ships focus fire on their main communication vessels, she ordered. We need to create confusion in their command structure. The human ships moved with incredible speed, their quantum drives allowing maneuvers that Council vessels couldn't match. The specialized weapons Dr. Hayes had developed tore through alien shields that had no defense against them. The distraction is working, Maya reported. Council forces are redirecting to engage us. The path to their command ship is opening. Susan nodded to Greg and Dr. Hayes, who stood ready in their combat suits. It's time. Get to the shuttle. Hayes gripped Susan's arm before leaving. If we succeed, the galaxy changes forever. If we fail, we won't fail, Susan said firmly. Humanity isn't going to be contained or eliminated. Not today. Not ever. As the main fleet battled above Earth, A small stealth shuttle carrying Hayes, Greg, Neeleth, and a team of 6 elite soldiers slipped past the battle toward the massive Council command ship. The vessel was twice the size of an aircraft carrier, with weaponry capable of devastating an entire continent. Inside the shuttle, Hayes made final adjustments to a small device. This quantum transmitter will bypass their communication controls. If we can reach their central database, we can broadcast the truth to every Council vessel and outpost simultaneously. Neeleth looked nervous but determined. The database is located near the command center. Security will be extreme. That's why we have you, Greg reminded her. Your Eldari authorization codes should get us past the first layers of security. The Bone shuttle approached the massive ship from below, in a blind spot their intelligence had identified. Using modified Council codes provided by Neeleth, they gained access through a maintenance airlock. Once inside, they moved quietly through service tunnels, avoiding patrols. Neeleth led the way, her knowledge of Council ship design proving invaluable. The main database is 2 levels up, she whispered, but we'll need to pass a security checkpoint. As they approached the checkpoint, alarms suddenly blared throughout. The ship, they've detected us, one of the soldiers said. Hayes shook his head. No, it's something else. Neeleth accessed a nearby information terminal. The Council command has ordered the final containment protocol. They're activating the orbital platforms to begin bombardment of Earth. We're out of time, Greg said, urgently. Hayes made a quick decision. We split up. Greg, take Neeleth and half the team to the database. I'll take the rest and try to reach the weapon control systems to delay the bombardment. Greg looked concerned. That's not the plan. It's too dangerous. Plans change, Hayes said simply. Now go. The team separated. Hayes and 3 soldiers headed toward the weapon control center, while Greg, Neeleth, and the others continued toward the database. Hayes' team encountered heavy resistance. Drakari security forces fired weapons that disintegrated one soldier instantly. Hayes and the others returned fire with their quantum disruptors, which passed right through the aliens' shields. Keep moving, Hayes urged as they fought their way forward. We need to buy time for Greg's team. Meanwhile, Greg's team reached the database center with Neeleth's help. Her access codes got them through the first security door, but the inner chamber was guarded by elite Corvallian warriors, a militaristic Council species known for their fighting prowess. I'll create a distraction, Neeleth said. When they move to intercept me, get to the central console. Before Greg could object, she stepped into the open and called out to the guards in their own language. As they moved toward her, Greg and the soldiers slipped into the room from another entrance. Greg reached the central database and connected Hayes' transmitter. Starting the upload now, he reported through his communicator. How are you doing, Alan? Static answered him. Then, Hayes' voice came through, weak and broken. Reached. Weapon controls, heavy resistance. Don't think I can make it back. Alan, hold on. We're coming for you after the upload. No time, Hayes replied. Upload the truth. Save Earth. That's what matters. In the weapon control center, Hayes was badly wounded. 2 Drakari guards lay dead nearby, but more were coming. With his remaining strength, Hayes activated the device he had brought as a last resort, a quantum disruptor bomb. This is for Earth, he whispered as he triggered the detonator. The explosion ripped through the weapon control center, disabling the command ship's ability to activate the orbital platforms. Throughout the vessel, critical systems failed as the quantum disruption spread. In the database center, Greg completed the upload just as the ship's power fluctuated. It's done. The transmission is going out to every Council ship and outpost. Across the galaxy, on thousands of vessels and hundreds of worlds, Council members of all species received the same transmission: the true history of the Council's containment policy, the suppression of naturally evolved species, and the lies told to maintain control. The transmission included proof from the Council's own records, the deliberate hampering of technological development, the secret observation of pre-contact species, and the most damning evidence: the complete destruction of civilizations that refuse to be controlled. On the Freedom's Bridge, Susan watched as council ships suddenly began powering down weapons. Communications channels erupted with confused and angry messages from junior officers to their commanders, demanding explanations. "It's working," Maya said in amazement. "The transmission is causing confusion in their ranks. Some ships are even standing down." Susan opened a channel to all vessels, council and human alike. "This is Admiral Susan Clark of Earth. We do not seek war with the Galactic Council or any of its member species. We seek only the freedom to determine our own future. The evidence you've received shows that the Council leadership has lied not just to humanity, but to all of you. Today we can choose a different path." One by one, Council ships ceased fire. Some smaller vessels from species that had long chafed under Drakari rule even moved to protect human ships from the remaining hostile forces. The battle for Earth ended not with total victory or defeat, but with the beginning of dialogue. 1 year later, Susan stood on the observation deck of the New Earth Embassy in neutral space. Representatives from 24 formerly suppressed species had gathered to form a new alliance, one based on mutual respect rather than dominance. The old council had fractured. Many species had joined the new alliance, while others, led by the militant Drakari, had retreated to their core systems. Greg joined Susan at the window. "The Hayes Memorial Science Academy opens next week. Alan would have been proud to see humans and aliens studying together, sharing knowledge instead of restricting it." Susan nodded, watching ships of various designs move peacefully through space. "He gave everything for this. So did many others. But we've changed the galaxy forever. Not through superior firepower," Greg noted, "but by exposing the truth. That was always humanity's greatest strength," Susan said quietly. "Not our weapons or technology, but our ability to question, to imagine different possibilities, to inspire others to see beyond the limitations they've accepted." As the Earthship Horizon prepared for its maiden voyage to unexplored space beyond the old Council territories, Susan thought about how far humanity had come. From a contained species facing extinction to leaders of a new galactic age, all because they refused to accept the boundaries others tried to impose. The stars awaited, and this time, humanity would explore them as equals, not as controlled subjects. The galaxy would never be the same again.